Hello, everyone. This is JD Calderon, and this is Indy Comics Explained. And again, I'm back, and I have a bunch of guests and a bunch of different topics to discuss. We're going to be discussing comics, all sorts of things. So go check it out. Go, just stay here, hit like, hit subscribe, let everybody know we're here, share out the show. And without further ado, let me start bringing these guys on. All right, let me start with. How you doing, JM? Please.
Good. How are you
introduce
doing?
yourself.
Yeah, I'm J.M. DeSantis. I'm a writer and artist, although we're mostly here for the writing thing. Creator of Chadiana, and which is dark fantasy series, and Gentleman Cthulhu, which is a humorous horror webcomic. And yeah, been doing this a while. Third time on your show, so welcome back. Hello again.
Welcome back. All right. Now we have Joe D. McPhee.
Good evening, everybody. I am Joe D. McPhee, president of CGC Studios. I am the writer and creator of Amazonia, Primetime Saturday Night, and the AWF comic book series.
Okay, that was quick. All right, sorry.
I could have been longer.
John, please introduce yourself.
I'm John Celestri. I'm an animator writer. I've been doing this for 45 years. I animated Boba Fett in Star Wars Holiday Special, animated on He-Man, She-Ra, Dragon's Lair, Space Ace, Rock and Rule. Wrote and self-published with my wife Kathy as Kathy John 5 crime fiction novels, and I'm writing and creating and drawing 3 different comic book series now.
Nice. All right, cool. Dude. Now we have Mr. JD Rosario.
The other JD on the show tonight. Yeah. What's up, everybody? My name is JD Rosario. I have been self-publishing for the last 12 plus years under the imprint Unstoppable Comics. I just successfully finished funding a book today, and I'm going to keep self-publishing books until I guess I die. This is not something you give up, right? Once you're in, you're never out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's
very true. Very true. Congratulations on that, by the way.
Thank you very much.
And now we have Mr. Luis M. Cruz. How are you, sir?
I'm writing you. Hi, my name is Luis Cruz. I'm the creator and writer of a few titles, namely Fuel of Life and The Day They Made Contact, and Jennifer the She-Wolf. And I'm also your friendly neighborhood handicap guy. How are you?
All right, you're handicapped?
No. I know. So check that
out. So check it out, guys. I got a few questions for you guys. All of it dealing basically with writing, different writing subjects, comics. All of it came from various subjects I saw on Facebook, YouTube, whatever. Like any good writer, I'm a thief at heart. I'll just take whatever I can find, mix it around, and utilize it. So here we go.
So if it's not nailed down, you're going to get it.
Even if it's nailed down, I'll pry it up. But so this one is for. I'm going to start with Lewis because this was actually something he posted online, and I found it very interesting. It was funny because when I first saw the question, I wanted to go in there and just type out 4 or 5 paragraphs, but I was just like, you know what? No, let's chill. Let's get everybody on a live stream, and we'll talk about it because I think that's a better way to disseminate the information, and talk. So it's about writer's block, Lewis, and I saw that you were having some issues,
yes.
And I mean, I know how I deal with it, so we're going to start with you. Like, how did you deal with it? Are you over it? And what's going on? What's going on with you?
I'm still dealing with it a little. A little bit, not much, but it's still frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just having all these ideas in your head that you just can't. You find it difficult to focus on the one that you want to do already, and I'm dealing with it slowly but surely. I'm coming out of it, I'm hoping, but it's there. And I just wanted to I don't know. Believe me, there's been times I wanted to just go down a hill real fast without my brakes attached. It was just awesome.
Gotcha. So I mean, what do you like? All right, so you're dealing with it, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what are you doing to try to deal with it? I mean, are you like, what? Because I have certain things I do. I'll go read a book. I'll go watch some crazy ass TV show or movie. What are you trying to do?
I've stayed away from writing as much as possible. I'll stop thinking about whatever it is that I want to write. That's helping, and I've caught on a couple of TV shows I've been meaning to catch up on.
Okay.
But the best thing is just staying away from the project that you're working on. For me, that's what's working so far.
Okay. All right. Cool. We'll move it over to Mr. We'll go with Jay Rosario for now.
Go with Jay. Go with Jay. All right.
We'll go with Jay. So we'll go from Jay to John, and then up to Joe, and then up to JM. There's a lot of J's here, bro.
Jay it out, baby. Jay it out.
Seriously. So Jay, how would you like with his situation? And I know you've probably gone through. We've all probably gone through this.
All of us.
Yeah. So I mean, what do you do?
So there's a few things that I do. One is you got quite a few plates spinning at the same time, right? Story A, story B, story C. So if you've got a stick with story A and it's not flowing for you, maybe when you're working on story B or story C, something else will pop up that doesn't work for one of these two stories, but applies to something else, right? Always keep a folder of tricks that you can dip into to hopefully motivate you later on, right? It's that saying, you find something when you're not looking for it, right? So when you're not looking for this, you're working on something else, you'll hit on there. Another thing is when you're done writing for the day or for the night or for that session, never finish your thought. Always leave it when you're typing out midway on the concept. So that way, when you come back to it the next day, you have that flow going. You're not sitting down in front of the computer or the pad or whatever you're doing, and you're stuck. You don't know, where do I go to next? You're ready and paced because you're following up from where you left off on the last session.
All right, very good. Oh yeah, just to let everybody know, we're trying to keep the questions to the answers 3 to 5 minutes each.
I sped up for you, bro. Come on.
No, you were good. You were great. You fell right in. There you go. John, what techniques do you utilize?
What do you mean by writer's block?
Well, for me, yeah, the way I understand it is that people just they come across a situation where maybe they're stuck in a story or just are unable to continue writing. You understand? Continue creating. There's just something holding them up.
It really depends on what your working method is. Mine is I don't start writing until I start knowing what it's all about. And I wind up saying, okay, what is the story? That is my writer's block. First of all, writer's block, you have to have already been writing it. So what I'm always doing is taking my working method is to take Post-it notes and then you just write a sentence on it and slap it on top of another on a sheet of 8.5 by 11 paper. I keep doing that, items that I want to say, and I just keep on doing that and doing that and doing that. And then I start saying, well, one thing connects with another. I build my story after I know what the story is all about. And there's always a theme. There's always some core thing that I'm trying to say in the story. And that's how I work it. Then I'll start juggling the various, sometimes I've got like 30, 40, 50, about 3 or 4 sheets of paper with maybe about 10, 15, 16 Post-it notes individually on each piece of paper. And then I start saying, well, where's the connection? What characters am I talking about? What do my characters want? That's when I start working through the story. I don't start writing until I know where it is. I always have guideposts. And this comes back from doing animation. Animation is, you have an idea of what the scene is going to be. You got your maybe 1 or 2 story poses that express it. So therefore, I start thinking about the guideposts. What are those pillars? And then I start working the structure. That's how I do it. So it's not a matter of me getting stuck in writing because I'm already. I've got the ingredients, and I start putting together the soup and the stew and whatnot. And then, I'll just if I say, well, I don't know how this is going to work, well, I'll just sleep on it, and invariably it works. So I don't stress it out. I don't try to force it. that's how I handle it.
All right, cool. Joe, Mr. McPhee, how do you go about these things?
Well, I gotta make this quick distinction. There's a difference between inspiration and actual writer's block. Having a failure for inspiration, that comes to dealing with looking at different things and seeing what things grab you to write about, as opposed to pure writer's block when you're in the middle of a story and you get to that point where you just don't know which direction to go in, even though you may have notes or may have things written down and outlined out. When you have the latter of the two, that's when you have to take that step back and just get your mind completely out of that space and do something else for maybe like, an hour, 2 hours a day, and then come back with a fresh set of eyes, as opposed to the former, which is lack of inspiration. That's when you want to be exposed to as much stuff as possible. And once you see what possibilities are out there, that's when you get that aha moment. Let me go ahead and jot this down and go in this direction one way or the other.
Okay. Cool. Good job. Mr. JM, how do you
All right.
do it?
Well, it's funny you mentioned Luis's post, because I had actually commented on that. But geez, I could take this for any number of directions, because I've done so many different things over the years. I mean, the way my career has gone is I've always just experimented with different ways of doing things. So I would say, like, at one point in my career, yeah, when it was writer's block, I would do what Luis did or is doing, where I would essentially go play a video game for a day or even a couple of days if I needed it, just to get away from the project. After that, it was just the more I developed as a writer, I would say, like, I started kind of trying to force my way through. That didn't always work so well. But actually, within the last few years, I basically kind of use John's method, where I do a lot of pre-writing and a lot of pre-planning. Actually, hate to plug somebody else's work in this, but a few years ago, I found John Truby's The Anatomy of Story and read that, and that was like a game changer for me. And I actually, it's funny because somebody brought up a similar method to me. Gary Cohn, who co-created Blue Devil, I knew him from years ago. He said that he had written a few Hardy Boys books, and what he did was he started with an outline, then he went from outline to synopsis each chapter, and then he went to writing each chapter. So he kind of developed it in stages. But yeah, I find the pre-writing is really what does it for me. Because what I can do is, if I need to writing out scenes, right, like all the boring stuff, like this person walks across the street to go do this and do that, I can write that, and in an outline form, once I have it, then it's a lot easier for me to see what I need to go with pacing and stuff like that. But yeah, like I'm kind of getting away from the question a little bit. I don't experience the writer's block as much now that I have like a method that I can depend on for putting stuff together. Now, if you're asking me as far as, because again, as Joe said, like, writer's block comes in two forms. You have, like, you can't get through a scene because you don't know what happens next, or you have like you're having a lack of inspiration. And yeah, I still have my days where it's like, I'm a shit writer and I can't do this. And yeah, the best thing to do is take time off. But as far as like in the moment of a story, not so many problems now that I have a pre-writing system. And I think Jay and John said it, like, having a couple of different projects at once helps, because if something's not working on one project, there's another one you can work on, and that will at least, even if you're not doing your best work, you kind of like get your confidence back, because it's like, okay, I can do this still, and then you get moving again, and you can get back to your regular project. So yeah, I would say that the best two answers I can give is, having a system and sticking to it, or actually 3 answers. I could say, having multiple projects, because that helps, and knowing when to take a break, because sometimes burnout happens, and that's a whole different thing. When you have burnout, you need to take a break. Mind and your creativity is a muscle too, and you can overwork it sometimes. Yeah.
Well, I mean, for myself, answering the question, I mean, I think for myself, whenever I feel like I'm slowing down or just winding down, I'll go off and I'll read something I would never read. I'll go off, I'll read a history book. I'll go off and I'll watch typically a foreign movie. I'll try to find some crazy Chinese action fantasy film that's just bonkers. And those usually do it for me because it makes me think in other directions. The other thing I sometimes will do is I'll just sit down and I'll write a story that has nothing to do with nothing. And, literally, and I'll try to pick a subject like, something I don't do. I'll try to do a romance. I'll try to write something that's totally out of my comfort zone. And it's just something I wouldn't do. You know what I mean? It's just on the normal, and it's the sort of thing I just write it and just set it to the side, never look at it again. But it's just more to just get back into it, because for me, it's about a challenge. I look at writing as a challenge. It's like, okay, can I figure out this puzzle? You understand? And that's what it has always been for me. And it's funny because Jay mentions doing your best work. Your best work should be saved for your edits, not while you're actually writing. You should. Your best work is in your edits, because you're gonna get to, because the way you can have a great day, full inspiration, 100% of the time for 15 hours straight. You just sit there, you're just banging and banging and banging. Then the next day come to it, and you're just feeling like crap, but you're still working. And you're just there, you're just feeling, you're like crap. You're like, damn it, I suck. I want to die. And then you go to the next day. Next day, you're just feeling normal. You're just going about it. And then when you finally get it all and you edit it, it should all be uniform, because that's where you just smooth it all out. But that's how it works.
Push through.
You got to push through. Yeah.
Well, if I can add to that, so see, that's something with all the pre-writing I'm doing. I totally understand what you're saying, but to me, the editing process is like the refining moment. Mm-hmm. Like when I'm doing the pre-writing, I'm building all the foundation. Right. So no matter whether I'm having a good or a bad day, the story is coming together.
Right.
And then, I mean, the editing, yeah, of course, it's all the cleanup and everything, but I don't know, like, I guess I don't think of it in terms of like when my best. So I know what I'm talking about. I know I'm saying like doing your best work, but that's one thing that I think does cause writer's block. I never think of in the moment whether or not I'm doing my best work or not. Right. And frankly, I don't care until it's done and I can sell it. I don't care what it is. Of course, I do care. There is a point where I do, but I'm not constantly worried about it. And in fact, as you know, I teach, and I'm always trying to get my students to get over that. That overthinking thing. Yeah.
So, John, you were going to say something?
Yeah. In the structure of creating all the material that I'm going to use, whether it be historical or whether it's the clues or what have you, when I'm doing a crime fiction novel or mystery, where you have to play fair. There's a certain type of mystery you just can't. You have to lay down the clues, but you can show them on the fly, just a sentence, but it's there. What I do is because my biggest my biggest like about writing is character, and that is I always make sure that I know what the backstory is to my character, what their goals are, what they're like, what their hatreds are, all of that. And I found myself that whenever I'm just molding, I'm saying, well, what's going to happen? Well, what does this character want? What are they going against? Who is the other? I mean, Saul Stein on writing. That was a book that I read about 30 years ago, and he said everybody has a script, but they don't know what the others. Each one has an individual script, but they don't know what the other's script is. So they're always constantly. They have a different they have a different goal. The other one has a different goal. That's the conflict. So when I start saying, where am I going with this? I say, well, what are their goals? What should they say? And many times they'll tell the characters will tell me what they should say. I don't try and force the words out of their mouth. And that's pre-editing. Editing, the editing is the final molding of the pieces, but the structure has to be there. So,
I'm sorry to jump on what you guys are saying. The structure can be there. You can lay out everything. You figured out. All right, protagonist is going to cross this ridge. You know whether he's going to skip, jump, or run, right? But once you get your artwork back, I work with freelancers, so I'm not the one doing the art on my books. You can have this magical panel that is just like amazing and beautiful, and you may have had 2 or 3 lines that was going back and forth between these characters, and sometimes you only have space to just put one balloon in the entire panel. So now you got to rework this thing that you thought was, this is exactly what they needed to say when you went through your 4th edit on your script, right? And now you got to figure out how to condense all of that into this panel, and then maybe put a little bit of more magic to flesh out the rest of it in the next panel. That's the magic in comics. You never know until you get that final mix of everything in the stew. Right? You get paralyzed by choice.
Yeah.
See, I kind of disagree with that here.
Really? Okay.
And the reason I kind of disagree with that, because as the writer, you set up the scene for the artist to actually draw.
No, sorry. You can't. I got
that's the difference between the method that you use and the method that I use. And that's a major difference, because it's like if I get artwork back from an artist and it's not following the script that I gave to them, I have a problem with that.
No.
And again, I think about dialogue and everything when I set up that scene. It's not like I keep that stuff away from the artist when I give them that script. They see what I'm trying to write. They know what dialogue is going to be in there.
I have to disagree with that, bro. I do. I'm sorry. That for me is you're handicapping your partner to an extent.
No. That's the reason why you have to make certain that you partner up with a person that understands you and you understand them.
Okay. That isn't always the case. If I can use a reference point, the first time that Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo worked with each other, he called him up and he was like, "What the F are you doing, bro?" He threw his script out for the very first Batman script. He was like, "No, you don't do that." It took them over a year to find that gel for them to work with each other, right? I'm not saying you put down, a person A is in the room talking to person B, and you got to make sure there's a computer there. No, there are certain elements you have to lay out, but you're not going to lay out each specific element how it's supposed to appear on the page. You can't. You're taking away some of the magic, in my opinion.
Okay. Well, guys, let me jump in, because I know both ends. I know exactly what Joe's talking about. I know exactly what Jay is talking about. I've been there. I write a script, and I've said it before. I'm sure most of you have heard me say this before. I never get back exactly what I want.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
But I am always amazed by what I get back. You understand?
Yes.
And 99% of the time, I'm pleased by it. There's very few times that I've had to go back and be like, "Look, you got to change this, change that." There's very few times.
Where?
But that's what. But we've lost our way. So I want to ask a question to Louis. Louis, I mean, going back to writer's block. I mean,
Yes.
I don't know if any of this helps, hinders, or whatever. But all I want to say is, good luck, and keep
Thank
pushing forward, bro. Keep pushing forward.
Yeah, man.
You're a talented writer.
Thank
Dude,
you.
just keep pushing forward, bro. Because no, don't let nothing stop you. Not even you. Because ultimately, that's who you're fighting. You're fighting you. You're not fighting me. You're not fighting Jay. You're not fighting John. You're not fighting Joe. You're not fighting JM. You're fighting yourself.
Yeah, thank you. I know.
And that's the toughest fight.
The crazy thing is, none of us could put our hands up to fight each other.
I don't know. Lou, you've rolled over my feet. That's tantamount to fighting, bro.
All right, guys. So let's move on to the next question. I mean, thank you for answering that, Louis. If you want to, actually, I want to ask you. I mean, you got anything else to add to that? I mean, anything you wanted to say?
No, what I was gonna say is when I get stuff that I like from an artist back, that's not the way I wrote it. I find that great because that means that he has his own input into it, and I can change the dialogue to the way he did it, which makes it a little better. You know, and that's just me.
That's
But,
the magic, bro.
yeah, like my artist will probably do it maybe twice in a 22-page book. He'll change 2 panels, not the way I wrote it, but okay, we're gonna go with it. You know, but yeah, that's it.
Joe, I love Joe. He's a control freak. I love it.
Well, he's a
that would've
director.
been, it's like in my terms, that would have been a phone call to the artist. What did you see in the script that made you think this way? And
I've
we
done that
have a
also.
dialogue about it, because I'm not changing certain things, and I will not change certain things in a script just because an artist cannot produce what's there and what was asked of them.
I've done
Now,
that.
if they saw something that technique wise that cannot be done, that's a different story. And that's where their compromise have to come in between writer and artist. But otherwise, beyond that, no.
JD and Luis, you are collaborating with your artist.
Yes.
Joe, you are hiring your artist. When I was writing with my wife. Well, we're not talking comic books, we're talking novels.
Okay.
We went back and forth. We actually sat at the same table. Once I did this, I told her I would say what the structure was of the script and what the bones were plot wise and what the characters were. Then we would go back and forth, sitting and writing at the same table. I mean, it was like a scene from the Mary Tyler Moore show, and a writer's room. That's what it was. It would be throwing ideas back and forth and say, well, if they did this, then that, and then we would have female characters, we have male characters. Well, who has a better understanding of how something would be done and how and what wouldn't be done? That's how we worked together for 5 novels. So. So collaboration is a different thing. And so therefore, depending upon, what it is, I mean, I'll be yelling from one air to the other when I'm drawing, when I'm doing the comic book, so there's no one answer to this, but it really depends on what your relationship is, in the process. So that's, there you go.
I yield to the elder statesman.
All right, so let's move on to the next question. All right, now this one came actually from one of John's posts, so I'm going to start with John.
Okay.
So, and the question is, what makes a comic adults only? I don't know if I exactly encapsulate the question correctly, John. Correct me.
What's the difference between an adult comic and a mature? What's the subject matter? There's adult versus maturity.
Right.
And those are 2 different things. To me, an adult is what are you legally allowed to, at what age are you okay? It's like having a drink or legal allowed. You can take that because you're no longer a minor, you can make the choice. Maturity means it's a subject matter. It is more than just prurient violence, sex, what have you. To me, those are 2 different things. There's plenty of adult material, but in the comic book industry right now, especially in the Indiegogo, in the crowdfunding campaigns, but there's not much maturity in it. Those were the 2 things and so to me, there's a difference in tone, or what is it that what issues are you could have things that are adult, but in a mature way. And then you have adult versus a sophomoric manner, where it is, just for the hell of it. You're doing this there, but, okay. That's my answer.
I got to agree with that. That nails that on the head, other than just adding verbiage, right? Writing to a 4th grade level or writing to a college level. I think other than that, John took care of all of it.
Yeah.
Oh, please don't make me Gandalf here.
No, well, I still believe it still has to deal with culture to be quite honest here, because certain cultures look at maturity in different ways here. Because it's like here in the States, we look at sexuality a little bit different than other countries, and what some might see as just plain old regular adult everyday stuff, other people see as mature, especially when it comes to certain aspects of sexuality, the act itself, what is being done. Are you actually showing romance as opposed to straight, sex in that aspect? It's a lot of things that play into it. And it comes down to culture and psychology, to be quite honest here. It's like, where do you put this on the spectrum? It's like, can a person that is 18 understand it? Can a person of 21 understand this? Can a person of the age of 14 understand this and get something out of it? It's kind of like one of those things of put it on a spectrum, and where does the culture that you're planning to produce this in is going to feel about it?
But there's also a maturity. When we're talking about maturity, also is the subject matter, not in a visual, physical sense. I'm talking about, like, again, this all comes from my with my angel character. Is thrown. The angel is thrown out of heaven. What is for being innocent, and then suddenly is being dashed and being eventually just feel as though they've been betrayed. What happens to that character? What is that choice that they have to make? That's a mature theme. It is not the adventures of Gilligan. It is not Raiders of the Lost Ark. It is not that. It is on a much different level. That's what I mean by maturity, and that's all that. And whether it be cultural in Spain or in the United States, there's all kinds. I mean, you could say, well, we don't. I would say there's some universal things that transcend culture, and so that's where I'm thinking, on a larger scale, a wider scale, or a deeper scale, in terms of what we don't see in subject matter in comic book approach. Even though you can do that, that's what Will Eisner was always talking about. So anyway, go ahead.
No, I was just about to add on to what you were saying here about mature, because to me, it's all about that character's journey. It's the actions that he takes. Just because you're dealing with a mature subject of innocent or guilty, that innocent or guilty could be done in so many different ways that a person that is 14 could understand it, as opposed to having the knowledge of a 35-year-old because of the actions that character takes. But that's where I come back into that cultural aspect of it, because if, like, taking your angel aspect character as an example, if he comes down to earth and he's pretty much like destroying a lot of stuff because he deems it as evil, and he deems it in a way where only people of age over 21 will know and see why it's evil, then it moves more towards that spectrum that it has to be someone 21 years or older, as opposed to something that is done in a generic sense where somebody that's a 5-year-old could understand it. You can't get away with it. There's no true separation between the two. You have to take in consideration of the journey and the culture that will read that material.
All right. So, JM, why don't you jump in? So we'll go from JM. We'll work around to Lewis and then back to JD.
Okay. So I feel like the line's kind of. I just want to make sure. So if I'm getting this right, if we're talking about it. Adult, it's who the audience is intended for reading for, where the maturity is like the level of, I guess, the depth of that story, right? Okay, so from my perspective, and this has been for as long as I can remember, I've always heard never talk down to your audience. So with the exception of an infant, which is not going to be able to handle, I don't think there's any subject matter that's really like inappropriate for a specific audience. Now, How it's presented to that audience is a completely different thing because, I'm sure there's even science to say that depending on a certain age level, if you're exposed to something, it'll, mess you up a bit. So, I think you could handle something that is very heavy, mature subject matter and do it in a way that, it's presentable to a younger audience. I know just from the little bit of exploring children's books and stuff like that and talking to people in the industry, there's books out there to help kids deal with real heavy stuff like parent dying and all of those things. So I think it just depends on how it's presented to the audience, how much you show, how much detail you go into. I am sure there are, I'm sure there's children's books on the Holocaust, right? Do they talk about, gas chambers and executions and all that? I'm sure they don't. You know what I mean? But they probably talk in such a way that, the age level that the book is for can kind of get the gist of it. And as they mature, they can get more of that. More information on that. And I would say it's the same thing with fiction, you don't have to stray away from certain subject matter as long as, the audience you're talking to. You're not going to put blood and gore, in a say a horror book or what might be called like a spooky book for a child, but it can still be a scary book for that, I don't. So maturity. Yeah, I just don't think there's a. I don't think there's a cap. I don't think there's a one or the other that you should be doing.
Well, I wasn't thinking. I was thinking. Once again, what is the difference between saying adult versus maturity? And those. That's what I was trying to say.
Right.
Because they do have things that are say, okay, rated X. For teenagers, you have to be at least 17 to read this book, but
right.
it's not making it much more mature than what it's just a legal thing. That's all I was saying.
Yeah.
If I could just jump in before I let Lewis on. So like for me, you have X, which is sex and adults doing adult things, right? That's X, right? We're not talking about that. We're talking about mature.
Yeah.
Now mature for me, let's say a subject like 14-year-old boy or girl, doesn't matter, could be a boy or girl. Parents pass away, car accident, anything, could be anything, right? 3 younger siblings, them having to step up to take care of those 3 younger siblings. You understand the process that they have to go through. You understand that maturity that they have to all of a sudden turn from that kid to an adult. You understand? Because I'm sure we all know people who are in their 30s, in their 40s, in their 50s who are still children.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. And then I know people who are 16, 17, 20, who are full-grown adults.
Yes.
You understand? Through the processes that they had to go through in life. And that's the difference between maturity and, let's say, an adult subject matter. Adult meaning like, just X-rated material. So, so that's my differentiation is literally the pattern and the story that character has to go through. The trials, tribulations, whatever you want to call it, whatever they have to go through. So that's the way I see it.
Yeah.
You understand? So let's move on, Mr. Lewis.
Okay.
I wanted to add before Lewis. I'm sorry, you got to go, but I got something here for this one.
Lewis, roll over his toes the next time you see him again. Go ahead.
Looking forward to it. Looking forward to it. Now, go ahead, Jay.
Okay, we're taking a question from the point of a creator, right? From the point of a reader, let me use this example of myself as a kid. As an 11, 12-year-old, I did not understand Hellblazer pre-Vertigo, right? Yet I understood early Cloak and Dagger. I understood those parallels between drug use and the club culture, and I got it, right? Where did I lie on the maturity level? I don't know, was I ready for the adult themes in Hellblazer as opposed to the adult allegories in Cloak and Dagger? I don't know, right? if I go back to John's initial phrasing of the question, yes, there's the rated X, there's the rated R, the PG-13, and I think that's the way most of society sees that with games, comics, movies, TV. With us, I'm scared that too many people go into that TNA nature just to just to grab the dollar from the low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, it's cheap and it's easy.
Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm seeing in, as I say, that's my point. That's what I'm seeing in the indie comics and the crowdfunding, and that, if you look at the numbers, that's what's grabbing all of the bucks.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes.
Yeah. You have a lot of dudes going out there doing TNA covers. You know, look, I respect him. I like his work, but you have Lady Death and Billy Tucci. Huge success. Makes $250,000 per campaign, if not more. But there's a lot of sexy covers on there. I don't know how good the stories are. I haven't read them in years.
But they have tenure. They have stroke, right? When you have a cosplayer doing a comic book on Kickstarter and blowing it out the water because she's doing her alternate covers with her her tits out, right? But blacked out for Kickstarter. I mean, come on, man. That's pulling up. That's going back to the old days of the Comic Cons here in New York, underneath the church, where you had, the X-rated stars, selling nudes also. And I think that's what maybe John is talking about as well.
Yeah, but like you said, low hanging fruit.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm sorry, we're eating up Lewis.
No, it's fine because I've written an erotic book from a handicap's point of view. So I know about that side. I haven't reached the maturity part yet. I'm not mature. But I know exactly what you're saying, where I look at it like this. I grew up where in school it was mandatory reading to read Lord of the Rings. Now, if you look at that story, it starts off innocently and ends in a very mature way, where he, in his journey, he's actually grown. And if you don't get that from that story, then you didn't read that correctly. And that's the way I look at it. Things now, in terms of writing stuff like that, I stick with one type of thing, which is I stay with the young adult. I haven't reached the maturity part. I don't like the maturity part. Sorry. No.
All right. Cool. I don't know, because I see Jay's look on his face, and I'm like, I don't think he read that book right either.
I never even read that one.
You
think about a different book too. he made mention of Lord of the Rings. The first thing that came to my mind is like, Lord of the Rings was not like Lord of the Flies, and Lord of the Flies was definitely mature, but it was not presented in that same aspect.
Right. I think he was thinking Sally of the Rings, but that's right. Sorry, let's move on to another question. Does anybody else have anything to add to that though before we cut out? No? All right. So here's one. This one also came from John. I thought this one was interesting.
No, he froze.
And again, John, please correct me if you think. Yeah, sorry, I froze for a second. But John, correct me if I'm phrasing this incorrectly, because this was your question. So, when was the last time you read a story in comics where you had sympathy for the protagonist? And again, I want to start with John because, like I said, it generated from it. So.
Okay, to me, the most sympathetic character that two. The first one is Ben Grimm, the Thing, and the other is the very beginnings of Peter Parker as Spider-Man. Those are the two where as a kid, I could relate to very easily. And what it is that they had doubts. They were people, they didn't want to be what they were. They weren't, they were misfits within society, but they were human. I could feel it. I could feel, as a 12-year-old, what they were going through. And to me, that was a very simple thing about them. And so that's how I, think. But I do not know what characters now, in present day, have the same kind of power? I don't know, because I don't relate to it, and I just don't know. So,
Okay, all right. We'll start with Jay. We'll
Okay.
work around to Lewis, and then we'll go to Jam, and then over to Joe.
All right, so we're
I'm
talking
always
about
up to
one
date.
character, not just one particular story.
no, a character, a character.
Okay.
Well, usually the protagonist.
Yeah, a protagonist.
Okay, so the one that I identified with, the one that I grew up with, who has been ruined recently, was Wally West. When I was coming into comic books, it was those Perez Wolfman years where Wally and Dick, they graduated. They went from elementary school to high school, right? But Wally was the first character that went beyond that. He was the one that went from the kids' table at Thanksgiving, right, to sitting with the adults, right? He went from being the guy who was bringing the beers to his uncle to the one who was having the beers. And when the Wade years was going on, you saw him grow into fatherhood, right? And up until the end of the John years, he was, I think, the most fully fleshed out character that DC Comics had from a relatable standpoint for my age group. And then the last story he had with that DC Rebirth, where he was just looking to be remembered by his friends and family. Yeah, I shed a tear at that moment. I was like, oh, this character's finally getting the credit he deserves. He is finally being recognized as the family, that emotional linchpin of the DC universe. And then, they turned him into a serial killer kind of deal. So it turns a lot of my points moot. But Wally was the guy that I grew up with. And, that one cover where he and Dick are just walking away in their costume, in pieces as they're walking away. That was it. That's what hit me, right? That's that coming of age story. So that was my guy.
Lewis, how you feel about it?
I'm gonna always say the man that I've always said, he is the ultimate to me, and I'm gonna go again, and I'm gonna say I feel that way about Superman. He can never be. He's not, he's got all these abilities and everything, but he'll never be, just an average Joe, and he's gonna outlive everyone. And he'll never have an average family with the woman he loves. And you got to kind of feel bad for a person like that, growing up having all those abilities that could have been anything in the world, but chose not to. Because if he played ball, by him tackling someone, he would kill him. He had to really restrain himself. So I kind of feel bad for that, because you could have been anything other than what you are now, and you chose to be what you are now because you had no other choice. So I kind of feel bad for him. Another character I kind of feel bad for is maybe because I like the character a lot and I follow him a lot. It's Spawn. In the beginning, you don't see what he went through, but as the story progressed, you saw what he lost, and what that's just me. Like I don't really dig anything else but those two characters.
You're a big
in my book.
softy.
Yeah, Batman sucks.
Yeah.
And that's it.
All right, cool, Jam. How do you feel about it?
It's funny when you first mentioned this, when you were contacting us about doing this. This was the one question where I was like, "What the hell kind of question is this? Aren't you supposed to feel sympathetic for every character?" As I'm hearing everybody's answer, it's like, yeah, I guess I understand a little bit better. To go with Luis, and also against him at the same time, in two ways. If I think back, Spawn, because I was growing up reading comics in the '90s, and Spawn was big then, and it was first starting out. Yeah, I felt a tremendous amount of sympathy for him, and everything he was losing and the struggle he was going on. Now, eventually, I lost sympathy because I felt like it went on forever, where he whined for. I think I gave up at issue 80 something. I was like, "Come on, man! Like do something about this." So I kind of lost the sympathy at some point. But yeah, I felt very sympathetic for him and his struggles. Now, I don't know about so much from the comics, but I got to be honest. Like the only film version of a character I really follow is Batman, and that's because I actually do feel a sympathetic tie to the character too. My parents are still alive; they haven't been murdered by some psycho in an alleyway or anything. But it's just kind of that internal struggle. I mean, he's always going through that. And I think I can relate to even some of like the anger and the just trying to find the balance in his life and stuff like that. Yeah, I think I mean, I can't speak to the comics because I don't read it, but it's at least on film, I mean, the character is very compelling. I find maybe not the George Clooney version, which he's admitted himself, but especially the Chris Nolan films, I really loved. But like, just to give a moment of a plug, I mean, like it's kind of encouraging and kind of disappointing at the same time to hear that, because as far as like I'm concerned, I mean, my character Chadiana, and I'm getting some feedback, so maybe things are not coming through right. But I mean, the main purpose of that, the book and writing it and everything, is to show this character's growth over a long period of time. So I guess in some ways I'm hoping maybe there's a dearth of that in comics, because that means I'm filling a need somewhere, but that is kind of disappointing, because when I do think about it, yeah, like I love the Hellboy books, right?
Oh,
but if
yeah.
you think about it, like, am I sympathetic to him? No, I think the books are awesome, but I don't know if there's anything in I think Mignola is a great writer, but I don't know that there's something to be sympathetic toward the character about, so maybe that is kind of lost in comics. I don't know.
Well, all right, let me jump in real quick. As far as Hellboy is concerned, the only point that I think I really felt sympathetic for him was in the first movie. This has nothing to do with the comics, but it's in that first movie when it's towards the end of the movie, and he's turning into this demon self, and he catches the cross and it burns in his hand, right? And it shows his fight, his internal struggle, to be good or to be evil. You understand? And that's one of the few times I felt sympathy towards that character. You understand? Because you could see that struggle. He wants to be good. He wants to be what his father intends him to be, not what he was intended to be. So that's where I felt some sympathy for him. As far as Hellboy, Joe, I'm sorry, I'm eating up your time.
No, actually you're not, and it's kind of hard for me to answer this question because personally, I don't really relate to most male characters in comics at all, because a lot of it to me is like you have some sympathy, but you also see that it was self-inflicted. So the very first character that I thought about with this question would probably be from a book that most people probably wouldn't have read, and that would be Kelly Sue D. McCormick's Bitch Planet. There was a character named Penny that was in that series, and everybody knows how they did this whole thing about non-complacency. And if you ever read her backstory, it was just like one of those things that just tugged your heartstrings, because she grew up pretty much bullied, picked on, and she was pretty much following the rules. But because she was picked on, and because people kept making her non-complicit based upon rules that she was following, she never had an opportunity to really live her life peacefully. And those are the types of stories that grab me more so than anything, and it makes me think about why they have to only write stories like this for women, and use it as a crutch as opposed to men characters. And the only male character that I kind of think about that have sympathy for would be Jaime Reyes, the new Blue Beetle, because that was pretty much thrust upon him. He had no intention one way or the other. He just happened to have the Scarab bonded to him. And, you know, he had no idea what was going on. And now all of a sudden it's a partnership between him and the Scarab now. As he learns what he can actually is going to take this point forward. So, you know, that kind of makes me have a little bit of sympathy about being that outsider and not knowing anything about what is going on and being, you know, having this power thrust upon you that you didn't even want. And then once you found out about it, you think it's kind of cool, but yet at the same time, you have the responsibility of not overusing it.
I didn't mean my question about sympathetic character. It didn't. There was no. It could have been male, female, what have you. It wasn't. I didn't think that, you know, that we as guys needed to just be, you know, connected to, you know, another guy character. That meant nothing. So, yeah.
No, we were connected to female characters too. Aliens, right? Ripley.
Yep.
Old Guard. I'm spitting here, but no, I mean James Cameron. I remember saying with Ripley, the way to make her relatable to men and women was to put her in the role of a mom. Yeah. Right. So it depends on what the writer does to reach the audiences.
Yeah. I know for myself, as far as sympathy, one of the few characters I did have felt sympathy for is probably Bruce Banner with the Hulk. You know, here's a dude who got, like, you know, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. He turns into a monster, you know, at the drop of a hat. I get a little angry, you know. I don't like my coffee today, so I'm going to get pissed off and destroy half the planet. You know, so, you know, it was one of those characters. But to be honest, when it comes out to a lot of these characters, I don't have a lot of sympathy for them. I enjoy their stories, but I don't necessarily have a lot of sympathy for them. You know, Batman, I mean, a dude, I mean, sorry, Jam, but for me, a dude who's a billionaire, built like a Greek god, and, you know, has all the toys in the world, and is a super genius on top of it, does not need my sympathy. I don't.
Right, but I mean, they're all kind of like that. I mean, you know, and that's.
Well, Bruce Banner's a bum, so you know.
Right. Well, you know, I think that's kind of my trouble with the superhero genre, and it's probably why I like asking, for me, asking me if I sympathize with anybody in comics. It's kind of like, no, right. You know, they're all super. Although, just for a minute, like, because we were bringing up female characters, I don't know why I just clicked. The one female character I always did feel bad for, honestly, is Rogue. I
was going to say
go against my non-superhero thing, because, like, not being able to touch anybody. I mean, you know, and you know,
kind of how we're living now.
Yeah, I mean, well, yeah, it's very relatable now. But I had always felt bad for her, because I just think you have an intimate partner and you can't, you know, like, I mean, that was always her thing with Gambit, was that love-hate relationship, because she'd kill him, you know, like if they came together, you know. So,
John, you were going to say something?
Yeah, JM just said something about it that just is the thing about that gets me. It's if comics is only superheroes, then we've got I mean, we've already lapped this thing around too many different times. We need to have other things, and that's the only way there's going to be any life put into this. Is that creators have to be able to find a new character and what have you, and outside of that's right, yes, and the thing is, and that's the only way to do it. And you've been trying to do this for 30 years, JD. You know, I mean, so and Joe, you've been doing this for 10 years with Amazonia, you know, and so this is the kind of thing that there has to be ways to reach out. And I know Alterna Comics is doing stuff, but it's still basically monsters and such. It's still a different, it's still, going back to the 80s, 70s even, so that's a different a level of writing and what have you. And the only way that you reach it is, I don't know, again, Will Eisner, I mean, with Art Spiegelman, with Mouse, a subject matter that can grab you and really bring you characters, putting characters that are likable and sympathetic into a very crazy situation that is totally relatable on a human scale. And that's the only way that they're actually going to grow any audience, because what was the comics of the 90s never going to come back. The audience has never come back. The comics of the 80s, the 70s, what have you, it has to be something new. And the only way to do that is for people who actually want to read, to go and pick new material up that is worth their time reading. So
right. Well, John, no, I'm glad you say that, because I mean, I'm not well known enough to be famously known for this, but I really don't like the superhero genre in general. I'm not a superhero. So I think of superheroes as a genre, not comics as a genre.
Oh yeah.
So I'm totally in agreement with you. I feel, and it's been a long time coming, that the medium, at least in the U.S., because from what I understand, outside of the U.S. it's different. But yeah, in the U.S., there has to be this separation. I mean, the superhero people can continue to like superhero stuff, but if the medium is going to continue, it's got to expand well beyond guys in tights going around punching people through buildings. I'm 100% with you on that.
So, JM, hold on. So I'm gonna give everybody. I got a challenge question for everybody. All right, we'll give everybody 2 minutes. 2 minutes to answer this question. All right. Now the question is, what indie comic do you know of where you have sympathy for the lead characters? All right. So I'll start. And it has, and when I say anybody out of Marvel and DC, because I'm going to throw somebody out from Image. There's a book called Birthright, a story about a young boy thrown into a parallel reality, grows up within, he's been gone for a year, and his family, they've obviously missed him. His two parents and his brother and his sister, they miss him. He comes back as a fully grown man. He's like this huge hulking monster, and he's some kind of mythic hero in this other world. Okay, so all his time has passed, and he comes back, but he's brought an evil with him. And those characters I feel sympathy for. Because, what happened to the boy in the other world, what happened to his parents and his family, the struggle they went through, the two parents ended up divorcing, separating, that whole thing. So, and the kids ended up suffering too because they missed their big brother. So, that's one for me. JM, we'll start with you.
Well, I mean, I already did Spawn.
Okay.
Oh,
that's true. You did say Spawn. All right.
But I mean, if I had to pull another one, I mean, I'm trying to think. There's so few books. I mean, I have been reading more indie books lately. That is for sure. But I'm trying to think. And it's terrible because I'm really liking a lot of the books that I'm reading. But as far as sympathetic characters, I still haven't found too many.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, this one feels a little on the spot. What do I say here? I mean, I like it's not of the Were Spider, but again, it's kind of a very superhero-y type of character. I don't know that there's much I can relate to with the character, but stories are great. Greg's a great writer. I love the book. Geez, I don't know. I'm still looking.
We'll put you in absentia. We'll say Spawn for now. Joe.
Again, I'm like JM. Nobody has heard of Bitch Planet. That was, I forgot who published it. I want to say Image.
It's Image, yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely one. And then the other one that I come to think about, you said main character that I had sympathy for, and I'm up here with thinking, it's something that I could honestly think that people have read would probably be somebody like Faith from Valiant. And the only reason I bring up Faith is because being a overweight superhero and being the kind of like the lesser member of a super team, and then she kind of like broke away from it because of the simple fact that there was a certain image that the rest of society wanted to uphold, and by her being a part of that group, even though she was like one of the more powerful members of that super group, it kind of broke her heart. It's like it broke her heart. It broke her aspiration as far as being with the guy that she wanted to be with. And that was kind of like one of the things that kind of drew me into that book, was like seeing how she actually dealt with that.
All right, fair enough. Sounds good to me, John.
Oh, geez. Okay. Indie Comics, there's just can't say, but I'll say this here. The equivalent of Indie Comics when I was growing up in reading, and that was the pre-Marvel, the Atlas days when they only had like 6 slots that they could fill, and they had to do that with 12 issues bi-monthly. And one of the characters this is pre-superhero, I like the Rawhide Kid. The Rawhide Kid, because those 5, 6, 7 page short stories always talked about him, trying to get into town. And he tried to sneak into town. He was trying to be an ordinary person, but his reputation was too great. And even when he would deny who he was, he couldn't get. Eventually, he just had to keep leaving. He kept losing the girl because he had to leave. And so again, I'm showing my age because I just I can't relate. But as a kid, there's still that aspect of sympathy. Yeah, of guy who was the best shot everywhere. He could do all kinds of things. He still got beaten up, but he was a little kid, a little guy, and it's that size and runt aspect to it that made him appealing to me. And then for TV, there's a lot of different things, but I had sympathy for a lot of the characters in Deadwood.
Oh, Deadwood, good show. Yeah.
So I'm going from that love. That's the kind of writing that we could that comic books would just love.
Well, something to aspire to.
Yeah.
All right, Jay, what do you got?
So I am going to go against the dais because I am a big superhero mark. The majority of the books that I've written for the past 12 years have been superhero books. And superheroes are just window dressing, right? Everybody eats hamburgers. What do you put on it? Do you put cheese? Do you put bacon? Do you put the California avocado burger? I don't know, but everybody likes their different style of burger, right? So my style just happens to be superhero stuff. So my sympathetic indie character, if Image is indie, is Invincible. He was the son of the greatest guy who went out against. He was the son of Michael Jordan, who cheated during the championship game, right? So coming right out of the box, he was disliked, and then he was used by the people who needed him to fill the slot that his dad had. I think that was great writing in Robert Kirkman's part, but it could have been a 24-issue series. He just expanded a lot of those fight scenes to
fill
15 to 20 pages in each
fill 150
book.
issues.
Yeah. So good on him. But no, I think that was a nice twist on the superhero genre.
All right, cool. I think that was Ryan Otley that did that. He wanted to have more paychecks. The artist. So, Louis, how do you feel about this?
I'm gonna go with this character that I know, and I feel bad for her. Her name is Jennifer the She-Wolf. Written, created by Cruising Comics, and I feel bad for her because she was turned into a wolf against her will
Mhm.
about 100 years ago, and she had to leave behind her family. And it's really, she lost her husband. She lived life 100 years without knowing that one of her kids is still alive, and you gotta feel bad for that bitch. You know what I'm saying? She's been through a lot. You know what I'm saying? You're a rough little bitch, that one.
There you go. All right.
Sorry,
cool.
sorry, Rosario. Sorry.
I fucking love
No,
you,
you-
bro. JD, I love you, bro.
Luis has reminded me. I could add a character or two onto it. I used to love Humberto
good book,
Ramos's
yes.
Crimson. Kind of the same thing. He was turned into a vampire against his will, and it was had to leave everything behind. So good thing I muted in between because of Cirilla. Also, I mean, some of the characters in Joe Madureira's Battle Chasers did have aspects to their story. I would say Garrison and Gully, not so much Nolan or Calabretto, but definitely those guys. But that's all I can think of. But I want to give you more than just Spawn. So there you go.
You know who else too, and you might find this weird. If you really look at his story, I don't know if this falls on the indie or whatever, but you gotta feel bad for Vader.
Yeah, I guess so because Dark Horse had it for a while. So, it could be.
He was the chosen one, and look where the fuck he ended up.
I don't know. The dude who ended up being a child murderer because some dude said, "Yo, maybe I could get you the thing that'll get you to save your girl, maybe." But you got to kill these kids first. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't have a lot of sympathy for that dude. Fuck that guy.
No.
Think about it.
But he lost the girl though. I feel bad for him.
But the
I feel more sorry for
after he
Obi-Wan.
murdered, right?
I feel more sorry for Obi-Wan because Obi-Wan did not want to train him from the start. He did it out of respect for his master. He did it out of respect for the Jedi Council that when that he was with the Jedi Council that was against it, and he had to be the one that convinced him because his master wanted it to happen, and he suffered the consequences, and then he had to take down his own student.
Yeah. Well, he didn't really take him down. At the end, the student won.
No, he remember he let him win.
Yeah, he let
him win.
Yep.
That's the difference. That's the reason why I say I feel more sorry for Obi-Wan because he didn't have to. He could have killed him.
Yeah.
He thought he stopped him, and then when he saw him again, he was like, and he looked at his son. He didn't know that.
Well,
I trained your son. I started your son on this journey. He looked at him as like, you know what? I'm done fighting this. So he's about to take care of this.
Let me ask John a question here.
Okay.
Did you have sympathy for the Knight in Dragon's Lair when you put him through all the torture you put him through in the game?
No, but I had a sympathy for the players.
There you go. That was not easy. That's not easy.
Pre-internet, I never knew how to play that game, man. I just wanted to see the cartoon, bro. That's all I wanted to see.
You learn the thing is that there was always a flash of light as the direction you're supposed to go to.
Right.
That was the cue.
I was absorbed in the entire cartoon or panel or whatever. I was like, what happened? I was lost.
My sympathies.
See, that's the reason why I love Space Ace so much more than Dragon Slayer because Ace always said something snarky before he died.
Yeah,
it either made you mad or made you laugh.
Well, you got to remember, Space Ace came after Dragon's Lair. Then we did Dragon's Lair 2. There was another one that came out, Time Warp, and that was a different thing. But when you develop these things over a period of time, you could see it could be better if we could do this, and then you get an idea of how to handle that. And that's what I'm saying is that sometimes the characters start, I mean, within you, you start thinking, because basically Space Ace and Dragons, they're different, but of the same family. So you start seeing, okay, I can do this better, and so on and so forth. So yeah, I agree. What's his name? Oh, Chester, Lester, what is his name? He would go, wah! Be falling down. There's always something, one of those characters.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. All right. So let's get on to the next question. Now, this question is going to mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So I'm going to ask it straight, right? I'm going to ask this question straight. It is going to mean something different to each and every one of you, right? Because I'm not going to be specific. Now, what I'm going to ask is that all of you remember your original thought, not let the person before you influence what you answer, right? And just try to take it from your original thought.
Wait a minute, let me get a piece of paper here. I'm getting old.
All right, so
start with John then.
Yeah, we'll start with John. Okay, that's fine. All right, at what point should a creator give up?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
Right?
If you want, if that's your answer, go ahead. However you develop that question in your head.
Okay.
So go ahead, John.
He's thinking about it.
Never.
Okay, that's fair.
Oh, can I qualify? Can I tell you what I mean by that?
Of course.
A creator has to have more than one idea in his head, which means that a creator is always going to have ideas in his head, and that's stop. You give up if you're a creator and you give up. That means that you really weren't a creator to begin with. You were just processing other things. You're going to come up with your own take on something. So that's what I mean, is that a creator doesn't give up.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, that's fair. Now let me sprinkle a little seasoning on that. All right.
Okay.
Just expand a little bit. Now, sometimes at what point should a creator give up? Now, there's a point I gave up with something in a story. I gave up a character. Character wasn't working out, so I had to give up on that character. Okay. Sometimes you just have to do that within a story. Sometimes the characters are not working out. Like I said, everybody's going to posit this question,
Okay.
differently. You understand?
Okay.
That's what I mean.
Okay. So can I have a mulligan? So I can thread that out. What does he give up? Keep out your own thoughts, okay? Don't look over my notes here. Actually, characters evolve. I don't give up on them. They change, and they become something new or something different. There's always something that could be changed or a new element added. So I don't give up on the character. The character evolves.
Okay. Fair enough. All right. Let's move it up to Joe. We'll do J and we'll roll around to Lewis and then Jay. Joe, it's on you, bro. Joe is like, damn it, why do you ask this damn question?
I was actually writing my thought down where I could actually sound somewhat coherent.
Gotcha.
So far, what I got down here is like when he or she cannot go any further with the IPs that they have. And I was prefacing any further, meaning that he or she cannot extend that IP. And what I mean by cannot extend the IP, in some form or some fashion, that IP has to grow in one way or the other, whether you continue on with the same adventures with the original character that you started off with, or you got so far in the IP that you have generations, and there's nothing you can do with another generation or the next generation of characters that came after the original set of people that you introduced. There has to be a point where you just can't go any further. There's nothing new up under the sun that you can do for that IP, was when you have to give up on it.
Okay, fair enough. Jan?
All right, so my original answer
original
exactly
Yeah.
word for word was when a creator stops learning and growing. Like, that's it. But I mean, to expand it if you want, that can go for anything, whether it's an IP, a story, whatever. Once it's got nowhere else to go, just like Joe was saying, I mean, that's it. But I do feel that way about creators. If your style, if nothing is developing, it's time to give up. The career's over. You're done.
Okay.
That's it.
Fair enough. That's interesting though.
Yeah.
Lewis, how do you feel about that?
You're asking the wrong guy. I've never given up on anything.
My man.
It be in books or my creative or me personally. I don't know. Me being the way I am physically, I don't know what it's like to give up on anything. There are ways to go around something. There are ways that you can just circle around and come back to it. But to me, when you use that, it's like you're giving up, and I don't feel comfortable doing that because I've never given up on anything. I've always gone forward. So in terms of creativity, I've looked at it like that too. You don't give up on something just because it can't go any further at that moment. You can go around it. You can go around it, and eventually that creation that you made will eventually pop up somewhere. But I don't. You're asking the wrong guy on giving up. I mean, I can't answer that. I can't. I've always in my life, I've always managed to. If I can't do something the way you do it, I'm gonna do it, but I'm gonna do it my way.
Right.
So it's. I don't know. To me, that word, that phrase, kind of bothers me because I don't give up on anything. It's difficult for me to answer. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. But I can't. I'm sorry. I can't.
No, that's fine. Listen, that's fair. Like I said, it's gonna be different for everybody.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's not just about. I'm not talking about giving up, like writing or whatever. I'm like, that's one aspect of it. That's why I asked everybody to think about it.
I'm gonna give you an example. My father, may he rest in peace. When I was young, the Atari came out. I'm gonna show my age. He was worried that my brothers could play the game, but I couldn't. But I figured out how I can play the game, and I used to cut my brother's ass, and they get mad at me. So he was worried about that, and he didn't want to get that because of that. And I got friends that we play video games, and they get mad because how the hell did the handicap beat them in a football game? They get mad at that shit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I don't even like football, but I beat them in the games. But it's just a matter of just getting over it. I mean, again, I've managed to always look further into it. Like before I do something, I'll think it out. So, for example, opening up a simple door, for a person like me, might give up. I won't give up until I do it. So you're asking the wrong guy. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Like I said, it's different for everywhere. All right. So, Mr. J, how do you feel about it?
Again, I'm going to go against everybody here. I gave up, and I said that 2 weeks ago, right? I don't know if you remember. I answered this without being asked. I gave up control of certain aspects of the production process, right? I hired an editor to challenge me on everything that I do. I like to be challenged. Maybe it's the New Yorker in me. I contest everything. I have a letterer doing the book for me, whereas before the lettering was my final process. I did it on my own, right? That was my final steps in the edits. So just because I know how to drive to the store doesn't mean it's the best way, the safest way, the most interesting way, right? I thrive on the collaborative process. I need those hands to spark my imagination, so I don't give up doing this, because I don't think we can give up doing this. This is, I don't know if it's a curse or an addiction or what, but once once becoming a creator, telling your stories, dreaming, and trying to make a way to earn a couple pennies by bringing your dreams into the world is something that we can ever give up. I mean, had I taken what I know and what I do and how much energy I put into this into owning a pizzeria or a car wash or any other business on my own, I would have been a hell of a lot successful. I would have been in mansions and Maseratis, but I'm not. I chose this, and I dug my heels into it.
See, Rosario, you say you gave up that, but I don't look at it as you giving up. I look at it as growth. You've
Okay.
actually grown into being able to hand out your things for other people to work on. I look at it as growth as a company.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No, don't.
May I ask a question?
Go ahead.
'Cause I want to know what Louis' definition of giving up, because one of the reasons why I asked that question, because I almost gave up on Amazonia. I was already 3 issues in. I saw the sales were not there. I had other books that were selling a lot better than that series, but it wasn't until Comixology took interest in it that shifts, corrected itself. So there going to be a point where you're going to have to make that hard choice to let something go, or suffer the consequences of having it to completely fail. And in a way, giving up is not truly a bad thing. It's a difference when you say I give up, as in done, finale, done, as opposed to I have to give this up because it's not working.
I gave up my marriage before.
I think JM wanted to.
I've given up my other wheelchair. It don't work no more.
There you go.
Right.
Well, yeah, I guess the only thing I can kind of add to it, 2 things. One, I actually did give up the creation thing for, I think, a little over a year. This was a long time ago. I was young. I was like, forget it. Excuse me, but fuck this. Like, I'm done, right? And you know what? I found myself creating anyway, and I came back. So that's how I knew it was never going to go anywhere. Now, as far as giving up on a creative thing, I mean, yeah, I could have given up on Chadiana. I could have given up on a lot of stuff, but I always think that, I understand what Joe's saying about, the numbers, but I think it's a really poor decision creatively to tie the success of something to the numbers on how much it's selling. Because I think, if you're speaking to what is important to you as a creator to create, you just have to create no matter what. And I mean, I know he's more and more as time goes on becoming a very controversial figure. But H.P. Lovecraft is a perfect example. The man was a huge failure when he was writing. And now, I mean, his stuff has permeated every level of horror and even outside of horror. So, I'm very much just go with what is speaking to you the most. So, and that's why I say, when you can't grow and you can't develop anymore, that's when you give it up, not when the numbers are down. Forget about that, because you never know. I mean, and that's a big thing I told myself with Chadiana. I'm going to finish this because I feel like this is something I have to do. And if it is 20 years after I'm dead that this takes off, well, you know what? It was supposed to happen, just wasn't going to happen in my time, And I think that's where the real value is on. Now, given I'm not the type that just wants to do, art and writing and not make any money off of it, because I talk about the money aspect all the time.
Yep.
But yeah, I think don't tie it to numbers. I mean, try to find a way to sell it. Like Lisa's saying, find your way around. If somebody's not going to buy it this way, go left and do it that way. But yeah, you should definitely do the work that's speaking to you the most, not the one that's making the most.
Can I add on to JM, because he said something, and I want to know if the rest of us feel that way, because I feel the same way you do. If it's going to happen, it's just may not be preordained to happen in our time. I've come to grips with that. I understand that. I mean, I want it to happen while I'm around. I want to enjoy that. But has everybody else come to grips with, it may not happen when I'm here to enjoy it?
I'm 38. I still got a while to go.
I'm 45. I think I got a while to go. But my dad died when he was 33, that happens, and he's the one that got me into comics. Like I said, I want it to be around. Don't get me wrong, I do. But I mean, I want it to be around when I'm here. I want to enjoy it. But if it doesn't, I'm cool with that.
Right. Well,
I'm 71, so
you're a baby.
I'm going by the. Pardon?
You're a baby, John.
Yeah.
You're a cherub.
Well, animators wise, they have a tendency to live until they're 99 or 100.
Good.
But I kind of figure, for me, I enjoy the process.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is the whole thing. And I mean, for example, when with my children's, or rather my kids stuff between the age of 4 and 12, the Snuffy and Zoes and the Mega Mooses. Right now, there is no market for these people for those things, because kids don't go on crowdfunding, website. Right. However, adults do, or mature people do. That's why the Bloodwing Angel stuff. That way, I've got a whole range for everybody. So, the process. I didn't stop them. I've got stories to tell with Mega Moose and with Snuffy and Zoe, but I have to find a way of getting them into the houses, and the only other way I know of doing it is getting through the parents. And that way, say, oh, you got something else for my kid? Oh, okay.
Right.
So that's the way I'm approaching it. But if you're a creator, you enjoy the process. If you're not a creator, you're trying to make money.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and I think that's kind of going to what I was saying about, like, when do you give up?
Yeah.
When you don't develop. See, that's the thing. Like, if I make it, right, make it, quote unquote, I still have stories to tell. Right. So no matter what, I'm going to be telling them. Mm-hmm. So whether I make $1 million or just $500 this year, like, that's the thing. I'll still be doing more stories. Mm-hmm. So I mean, that's why I they're two different considerations. Like, as far as, but I understand what you're saying, JD. I mean, I would like to be around to see the success of things, but I wouldn't say like I'm reserved to the how do I put it? That outlook that maybe it's not going to happen in my lifetime. Because I also think nothing is just overnight. Like they get revivals, they get second, third life. I mean, like. And so much is unpredictable, Right. I mean, I hate to say it and not to be morose, but the time we're living in right now, COVID could take out anybody in a month or two. I mean, like,
yep,
right.
Hopefully that doesn't happen to anybody here or anybody out there, but it's the reality of the the situation, and I think I think the idea is just keep creating, and I mean, if something hits, great, and if not, I don't plan on ever retiring. That's the thing. Like, I'll be creating until I'm dead. So
I think that's all of us.
Yeah.
So I mean, like, whatever I'm able to finish by that point, that's what'll be there. For everybody after me, and hopefully something does hit. But it's like if Chadiana doesn't hit. Well, I've got like probably 6 or 7 novels in my head and a few other comic series. It's like something will, and then maybe that will at some. It just I guess I'm kind of going all over the place, but I don't know. I don't know that I'm thinking about that specifically.
Well, that's the concept that always bothers me with some creators, that they don't want to deal with the business side of things here, because it takes money to create your envisions in some form or some fashion. And it's like, I'm one that has, multiple IPs currently going out there right now. And to me, giving up is just saying you're shutting down shop altogether, as opposed to, hey, I'm giving up on this particular IP. It does not necessarily mean I won't come back to it later on. And one of the greatest things to ever happen to a creator is that you're selling the ones that you love the most and making you the most money. And then here comes this one person with this issue that you haven't seen in a while. And it's like, I want you to sign this. And you ask them, hey, how did you like it?
Yeah.
That reinvigorates you to go back to it. And people cheapen that. And people cheapen that aspect of creating. Sometimes you have to walk away in order to have some appreciation for it. There's no other way around it. You have to take that step back. And that's what it kind of irks me when people say, it's like, no, you got to keep on pushing, It's like, yeah, you could keep on pushing and you could push yourself into a grave on an IP that is not ready for its time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well then I guess I just feel like don't release it if you're not ready to go with it. I mean, every company, right? They have I forget what it's called, but there are their books or their properties that are going to lose money, and then there's their properties that make so much money that it makes up for the ones that they're losing on. And that's the thing. It's like if you are enjoying the process of creating something and you have something else that's making the money for you, I don't see the point in ending your run on something while you have the energy to do it. Just because of some outside factors. And there's something to be said about like when when you're in a certain mindset, like I do feel like there's a fixed almost mood or theme to your work. Like at a certain point in your life, you're going to create a certain type of work. So if you decide to go back to a property 10 or 20 years later, it's not going to be the property it was 10 or 20 years ago.
Correct.
Right.
You should have finished it 10 or 20 years before. I mean, we're seeing that a lot with a lot of these, like Hollywood, we're going to restart this thing while all these actors are 60 years old and nobody cares. Like they're horrible movies because they should have done it when those actors and those properties were fresh, not now.
And that's, in a way, that example is apples and oranges. Source material does not work in that same aspect, but I get your point, though.
No, I don't think so. People even said it about whatchamacallit, and I haven't read all of the originals, but Sherlock Holmes. When Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was basically coerced back into going back to it, and he finally found a love for Sherlock Holmes again, that was the great hiatus. Like the character changed, the stories changed. People felt that Sherlock Holmes originally was not Sherlock Holmes after the 10 years that Sir Arthur Conan Doyle had spent away from it.
Because he had different life experiences by that point.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's just not, whether it's film, comics, whatever, it's not going to be the same. I almost would encourage creators not to do that to themselves. Like if you still feel the energy to create something, do it at the time. You can put it on a shelf if you need to.
Again, you cheapen the evolution too.
No,
because what you write today,
yes,
it's going to definitely be their own experiences. Your work grows as you do.
Well, that's true. So you'll create a new property with.
It's still the same property. It's just a different take on it.
Well, then that's why you create something new. That's my feeling on it. Yeah, that's why you create something new.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I missed a portion of the conversation. I had to step off for a minute. But the thing is I think I know where it's going and where the genesis is from. If you're gonna, I think, bring something back, there has to be something. You have to have someone involved at the head who genuinely loves it, who genuinely has a real passion for it, because then if not, you're gonna end up with something like, and I mean, and some of you might like this movie, but you know, what was that? What was the second movie of the what was the garbage movie they came? Return of the Jedi? No.
Whoa,
Which one?
dude! I don't
What?
want to be in here no more. I'm
What?
out. I don't want to be here no more. I'm out.
What? That movie was trash. Sorry.
Watch your mouth. Watch your mouth.
I only know there are 3 Star Wars.
Yes.
Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, and the Return of the Jedi.
They're the only ones I recognize. Yeah.
There are only 3. Oh, well, and the cartoon and the Hollywood special.
Right, there you go. There you go. But listen, guys, there was a thing about, you know, at what point any creator should give up or whatever. I never gave my answer. And my answer has always been, is at the point you no longer enjoy the process. So you no longer enjoy the project. I feel, you know, that goes hand in hand with what Jan was saying. You know, once you stop enjoying it, that's probably the time to like pass. Because once that passion is gone, it's probably better to you don't even necessarily have to give up on it. You just necessarily put it to the side and maybe walk away for a while, and then you come back to it. Because you know, and then maybe you'll feel differently later on. But I think that's always been my take on it. You just got to walk away, you know. So yeah, sorry, Louis. You know, well, really, I'm not all that sorry about it. But you know, that movie was trash.
Hope I don't ever see you anywhere.
Don't worry,
Yeah,
I'll take
get him.
you over.
Run over his toes.
Yeah,
also,
I
man.
am.
Don't worry,
Yeah.
I wear steel toes, and trust me, if my foot kicks up.
I'll knock his pencil off the table. You can roll over his fingers.
There
There
you
you
go.
go. No, I mean, you know, so I mean, those are pretty much all of my questions. I'm gonna open it up to you guys. I mean, do any of you have a question you guys want to ask the panel?
Tons, but I talk a lot, so I'll wait till somebody else asks.
You know, I was going to say I enjoyed it, but I got to get going. And
All right.
besides, half these questions were mine that JD took. So
I ripped them off.
there are, you know, those 2 or 3 of them were mine. So there you go. I've done everything I can. It's been a pleasure, guys. I hope to see you again and
Take care,
have
John.
another get together.
All right, John. I
All
mean,
right,
you want
John.
to let everybody know where they can find you?
Well, yeah, you get the biggest places on Twitter. Well, Facebook at John Celestri, and Twitter is it's Celestri John, and I'm on my John Celestri Comics on Indiegogo. I'm in demand there, so you can get stuff. And for $2, you can get episode 1 of Bloodwing Angel for PDF. You can't go wrong for $2.
It's worth the $2.
Right.
It's worth the $2. It's worth the $2. I read it. It's worth the $2.
Yeah.
That's an old
Okay,
school
guys.
New Yorker. Hawking his
Take
wares
care.
right there.
All right. Good night, everybody. And happy holidays, and Merry Christmas,
Likewise.
Happy
Enjoy the
Hanukkah,
best.
whatever you're celebrating. Take care.
Enjoy. Happy New
Okay.
Year.
Take
Yeah.
care.
All right.
Happy New
Bye-bye.
Year. Bye.
All right, bye.
He's a nice guy.
Yeah.
John's awesome, man.
Yep.
John's awesome. So, anybody have a question they want to ask everybody else before I throw one out?
No, you're the host, man.
Oh, listen, guys, you know how it is. I'm like, you know, I don't like thinking for everybody.
See, I don't like
Hey, my answers are mine. Yeah.
starting drop
I
controversy.
need your questions. So, Jay, go ahead.
Would you go back to conventions if they started coming up again?
Louis.
I'm
I know
already.
just to-
Oh,
I know to run over my toes, but I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay.
It depends.
Okay.
Depends what's the situation at that time. Like
Okay.
if things clear up by March, then yeah. Come October, I'm gonna go to New York. I'm in New York anyway. I'm gonna go to New York Comic Con.
Yeah. It's backyard.
Yeah. I mean, if they tell me in June that the stuff is still not that, no, then I'm not going. July, no, it's too close. What about you, Rosario? You going back?
If they come up, yes, but I won't be doing as many as I used to. Maybe 1 or 2 tops. That's it.
Okay. New York is one of them.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, I know for myself, because I was doing very few shows even before the pandemic for the last 2 years. But you know, I spoke to my wife. We might actually do New York if it comes up next year. But also it depends. You know,
Right.
how fierce is, you know, this thing still going on? Is it cleared up by June or July? You know, because we're talking about also going to Disney World in September.
Mhm.
But it also depends. It depends on, like, you know, how many vaccines get out there. People are taking them. You know, it's gonna be a minute. I mean, when what was it? The Spanish flu in 1922 or whatever?
Mhm.
They said it took 5 years before people started shaking hands again.
Look at that.
Right.
Yeah,
Look at that.
5 years.
And
those people did everything.
New York Comic Con, you know, they packed in 250,000 people last year.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen anymore.
Yeah.
Like
No.
I think
Right.
those days are done. I hope they're done. You know, it's,
Really?
Why?
Well, just to let you guys know, and this is what I got from Read Exhibition so far. I don't know about New York, but C2E2 has been rescheduled for December of 2021.
yeah,
And normally C2E2 begins kind of like their convention seasons.
yeah.
No, Emerald City.
Emerald
So-
City comes after us now. Emerald City used to
Okay.
be before C2E2.
Before, right,
Now
right.
it comes after.
Okay. Or before, who knows now with that?
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
But the first one that they thinking about schedule
Right.
was C2E2, and they saying mid-December.
Well,
So if that happens, most likely there might be room for New York probably in October, depending on how things go. But they're still talking about December for C2E2, which I'm still not.
Yeah.
I want to do it if everything lines up with the vaccines and everything. I would do it, considering that if people got inoculated with it, sure, we'll do what we did this year, because that was the only convention that happened this year by Read Exhibition with C2E2. I was there. We had sanitizing wipes, all the other stuff, because we didn't know what was going on. We only know what we saw was this stuff is happening overseas and this, that, and the other, and everybody was paranoid.
Right.
So we were looking to get that one in, and then everybody else.
Yeah.
Calderon, you said for the Spanish flu, people didn't shake hands for 5 years?
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. Like, you know, because, you know,
since I was born. That's fucking.
Well, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
It's the funny man.
You know,
Mr. Funny Man, I like that.
Jay knows because when I see Jay, I give him the elbow. And that whole thing with the elbows, when the elbow thing started after the pandemic, I was like, yo, they stole my idea.
Yeah.
I should be copyright that a long time ago.
There you go. Seriously, I mean, as long as you're not throwing like a UFC elbow, you know.
Yeah, no. It's an outbreak.
Now, I got a question. How many of you guys watch The Mandalorian?
Yes.
I don't have Disney Plus, so
Oh, sorry.
Same here, no Disney Plus. Besides it's
okay.
Star Wars, I'm a Trekkie.
Oh, I'm a
Oh,
Trekkie
okay.
too.
Oh,
I like
yeah.
Trekkie.
Trekkie. Oh.
Get
You know
him,
what?
Joe.
The only thing I ever saw from Trek was DS9, and that's because Avery Brooks, A Man Called Hawk, was on the show. That's
Mhm.
it.
Mhm.
And that
That's it.
show
That's it.
was comparable to Babylon 5,
Yeah.
which was his
I like
only
Babylon.
competition. It was his only competition, and they went
Yeah.
head to head.
Yeah.
Babylon was good, but I like DS9 a lot more.
But back to Mandalorian, why did you bring that up, Calderon?
Well, see, I don't want. Well, I mean, do you guys mind if I ruin it for you, JM, Joe?
my brother and
hasn't over-
sister-in-law have Disney Plus, so I might watch it on their.
Don't kill it. Next
you can't kill
question,
it.
Calderon.
Yeah.
Next question.
That's it.
You gotta protect them.
So
Good save,
because
JM.
because
Good
I
save.
hear this is so I grew up on Star Wars, but
Right.
like John, who's left us now, I only recognize the first 3 episodes because 4, 5, 6, right? And this is the first
Mr.
thing I've
Lewis.
heard that is actually worth it for a Star Wars fan to see. So
Right. Mr. Lewis is the one that got sensitive.
Yeah.
What was it? The Last Jedi?
As long as we're not talking about episode 2, which I couldn't stand. I could not stand episode 2.
You know, okay.
The movie.
I didn't.
The animation I loved.
Yes.
The movie I can't stand.
Oh, see, now I didn't even
Clone
watch
Wars.
the animations, But
I was hungry for everything. I read the books in the 90s, guys.
Attack of the Clones.
yeah. Well,
Yeah,
see,
exactly.
I didn't read the books in the 90s, but I knew from some of my friends who were reading the books,
Uh,
some of what was like in the, supposed to be from the past. Like the Clone Wars sounded awesome to me. Like these clone Jedi that were going insane and killing each other. I was like,
Yeah.
yes. And then the stormtroopers walk in, and I'm like, what is this?
yeah.
This is not what I was looking for.
I cried when Chewbacca died in the comics, man.
So yeah, I read some of the comic stuff. I did read though.
Yeah.
But oh man, yeah. So Star Wars sits as the gold standard to me of what never to do with your original property. Star Wars. That's what I put up as, that's the template. You want to screw up your series, do what George Lucas and Disney did.
Why?
Why?
Yeah.
I mean, he went, going back to our debate earlier, right? George Lucas walked away from Star Wars for years, went back to it, screwed the whole thing up with the prequel trilogy, and then he sold it to Disney, who cared about the money and not about the property. So,
whoa.
Screwed it up more.
Slow down for a second there, because now you just confused me, because George Lucas never wrote a lot of the novels that came out after.
After
the first three series, which was considered quote unquote canon. And it's like I have too many Star Wars fans that would be like ready to jump down your throat with that statement. It's like I don't know what it is.
I wasn't talking about novels. I'm talking about George Lucas going back to the prequel trilogy. That's what I said. 1, 2, 3.
Right, but they're saying that there was source material that reflected the prequels that you have to know that Lucas had no bearing on.
I never said he did. No.
Okay.
Did anybody ever watch THX 1138?
Yeah, I did.
No.
Yeah.
I stayed away from it.
No, watch it. It's boring as hell.
Yeah.
But if you watch it and you see Lucas's history as a director, he wasn't invested in Star Wars as he was making movies.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And he was more about the process than anything else. And if you look at THX 1138, it laid the foundation for so many elements in not just the original Star Wars movies, but things we saw in movies like Rogue One. And I'm just like, Jesus Christ. If you saw Rogue One, that scene where they're trying to get the VHS tapes or whatever, right? That mechanism that he had, that came all the way from THX 1138. All of the sound effects in there, from the early Star Wars came because he didn't have the money to produce new stuff that he had already. So he just reused the stuff that he had in THX 1138. Star Wars was the ultimate garage band success.
No, I'm way behind on this, but I recently, because of the pandemic, all this time on my hands, I discovered Red Letter Media. Those are the only people that seem to agree with me on the George Lucas thing. I don't know who that is.
I'm sorry.
What's up?
I don't know who they are. Can you tell me
no,
who they are?
we gotta watch some of their when they talk about Lucas and the Star Wars series and everything. Red Letter Media on YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. I tend to think like, and I know what you're saying about like George Lucas was interested in the process, but if he really was, he would have been making movies. He didn't. He didn't touch anything after Jedi, and he didn't even.
He didn't write anything after Jedi. That was the point. He didn't.
No, he did write.
He didn't have control. He let other people control the IP.
He wrote Indiana Jones was his writing.
Yeah,
Indiana Jones was his, but he wasn't. He all he did was concentrate on special effects for a long time.
Part of that, I want to tack on to something that Joe mentioned earlier, and he got caught up in the business side after the making the movie side, the ILM stuff. He was managing a business, and the prequels was just he wanted to get back. He forced his way back in. but
Right.
he still had most of the people doing the creative process. He walked around with a little stamp with his signature pre-made on it, approving concept illustrations, dude. He was still so tied up in running the day-to-day of Lucasfilm that he was not involved. I mean, his kids made decisions on the movies, bro. So he got lost, and it's like, how do we, the five of us, right, as creators, and you said it right. You use them as a guide of what not to do.
Right.
So how do we take those lessons that we learned from Lucas, that we learned from Roddenberry, that we learned from J.M. Straczynski, and use that as a roadmap to guide us in what we did?
Right.
Are we learning from them, whatever we can?
I mean, I'm attempting to as best I can. I'm not certainly in the position or with the platform to be able to be able to. I walk the walk as much as I can, and the thing is, I don't want to come off as the guy that's not into the business stuff, because believe me, I have had on the opposite side when I talk about the business end. People are like, "You're insane. Are you kidding me? How much you think somebody should make for doing a graphic novel?" Well, then don't be hiring people if you can't pay for it. But I mean, we can't do anything about our work after we're gone. I mean, that's one thing that's true, right? So, I mean, for Gene Roddenberry, I mean, what are you going to do? George Lucas decided to sell it off while he was still alive, and that was certainly his prerogative.
Okay.
He is allowed to do that. I mean, right? My only thing with Disney wasn't that he sold it to them. It was just that the more so I didn't even see I did not watch episode 9. I have zero interest in it.
Okay.
After I learned the behind the scenes stuff of the way Disney was handling the sequel trilogy, it was just like, why am I going to bother?
Right.
Like, they did not care at all. They wanted to pull in as much money from all the new Star Wars fans as they could. It's why I don't subscribe to Disney Plus. I mean, I'm not very big on the company anymore. Let them make money off of the low hanging fruit. I'm not for it.
So, if you like the story behind the story, right?
Yes.
For me, I feel the story behind the story of what Jon Favreau is doing is amazing.
So that's why I'm actually interested in seeing The Mandalorian, because I feel like this is the first time that somebody actually cares and is doing a good job. And Jon Favreau, I mean, I don't know how everybody else feels, but I feel he's got a pretty solid track record. Like,
hell of a track record.
Yeah.
Dude, I used to be able to recite Made word for word. I love that movie. I go deep with Jon Fav. If you get a chance, Netflix just did a holiday special for the movies that made us with Elf, and Elf was the very first Johnny Fav's that was his directorial debut, and just looking at the process of.
Was that his directorial? That was his.
Yeah.
Because I saw, God, I can't even remember the name of it. There was a romantic comedy he did. Maybe he wrote it.
Okay.
With Famke Janssen. Like, totally obscure thing.
Well, Famke was in Made, but it wasn't a romantic comedy.
Yeah, no, then it's not what I'm thinking of.
Okay.
And then there was, but wasn't he involved with? Not Rounders. What was that movie? And I haven't seen it. I'm like looking up on my phone now because this is being...
I see 3 people that I'm gonna have to run over when I bump into ya.
Yeah.
And that's Calderon, Mr. DeSantis. I used to like you. As my publisher, I used to like you. And Rosario, you and I we have a love-hate relationship already. The only one I'm liking today is Joe. Joe, I'm sorry.
Run him over too.
No, I'm not running over Joe. No.
He's in Chicago.
He could run me over, but it'd be like a pity running over. Just to be like, you're in the club. Here you go, blue light. What did I do?
So, Louis, why are you running us over?
Well, y'all are talking a little negative about the person that I pray to, which is George Lucas. You know, I pray to him, and this might sound wrong. And his lightsaber, no homo.
Pray to it. Pray to it if you got to pray.
And his little Yoda. You know what I'm saying? It sounds wrong, but
gotcha. All right.
Well, listen. The one thing I'll say about George Lucas is I love the first 3 movies, the original 3 movies. You know, everybody loves them.
Yeah.
The sequel trilogy, I enjoy very much in high speed. I can watch those 3 movies in 2 hours.
Okay.
That's the way to watch them. There's certain scenes, if I don't like the scene, I just fast forward. But there's stuff in those movies that I absolutely love. You know, there's the opening sequence to the 3rd movie where it's what is it? Obi-Wan and Anakin in the fighters.
Okay.
That opening scene, I think, is one of the best space battle scenes I've ever seen.
Wait, you're talking about the prequel trilogy?
The prequel trilogy, yeah.
Okay.
You know, I think that's one of the best, space battle movies. You just see that thing open up, and it's just like, what the hell? And you just see like worlds like dying, and it's like, what the flip is going on there? You know?
Yeah.
You know,
my white noise movie is Rogue One.
I like Rogue One.
Rogue One. So Rogue One I saw. It was a good movie.
Okay.
But I don't feel like it added anything.
Yeah.
It wasn't supposed to add anything. It was just a history. I took it as a history movie.
I looked at it as fill in the gap kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We didn't
not
need
fill in the gap.
I saw it as we didn't need it.
I saw it as pick up the
Again,
scraps.
Jay, I don't like you right now, Jay.
Same thing with Solo. Solo was just another history movie. It's like if you like Star Wars, you want to know how Solo came about and the whole relationship to Lando. That was the movie to watch.
Yeah, but that could have been done better too, though. I didn't like that movie too much.
Because let me tell you something.
There is a little bit of something, and it's funny. Luis brought up the Lord of the Rings earlier. See, I'm a big Tolkien fan now, and Tolkien was very big on like, you do not make everything like the past should be remote. You should not be able to touch it and feel it. You should not see the scenes of everything that happened before. I mean, you could debate with the Silmarillion, but that is supposed to be read as if you're reading this most summary of events that happened long before. Like, he was very big on not beating the dead horse.
But that was a prior time, bro.
What's that?
That was a prior time.
60 years ago.
Tolkien.
You know what? I think, and this is, just my opinion. I know what you're saying, but I think we're inundated with an oversaturation of products and not substance in creativity. I think there is a point where you don't delve into so much of the lore to the point where you're getting like just these microscopic, it's just unnecessary. It loses the magic to it if you know everything.
See, that was the difference with Star Wars. That's what perpetuated it, is that people wanted to know the story of everybody in the background. And that's what kept it going in the late 80s and the early 90s until the prequel came out. You had that, you had their card game, right? Their Magic, the Gathering, or whatever it was. And it was based off of the characters that were in the back of the cantina scene. I
used to think that stuff was, it's great if George Lucas knew that information. And in a card game, right? So how much of the information would you have?
Oh, no, that was definitely not him. But
I'm asking, like, so in the card game, if you knew the background information on all of the characters, how much, like, word count, how much information was there?
Oh, you can't. But see, but this
is my point. How much information did you have?
No, you had a blurb. But
right.
that blurb,
not a whole film. not a
of
whole
course.
film per character.
Okay.
That's
okay.
my point.
Okay.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think it's a mistake.
I had this
Again,
discussion.
Star
So-
Wars is what not to do.
I
Can we take him out of this group right now? Sorry, Jay.
listen. I think certain people like a certain way. Some people like
Yeah.
to have those gaps that they can
Right.
imagine in. Some people like those gaps filled in.
Right.
You understand? So I know where JM is coming from. You know, too much information. I don't want to know everything. I want to leave a little mystery in there. You understand? So that I can fill in those gaps on my own.
Well, the thing
That makes me ask this question to him, since he brought up Tolkien.
Yeah.
Why is there so many people that love The Hobbit but hate The Lord of the Rings, and vice versa? There's not too many people that love both. And there's a reason for
I
that.
don't know. I don't even know what you mean.
I know people who love The Hobbit, but they don't like the Lord of the Rings series. I know people who love Lord of the Rings,
I've
but can't stand The Hobbit.
Are we
I like
talking
both
about Rankin
myself.
Bass Hobbit?
I don't.
No. We're not talking about animation. We're talking about the
I know.
story. The story,
Yeah, the
because
actual prose.
there were leaps taken between the two series.
No, I really, in that sense, I don't know what you mean. Yes, there are people that like the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit that don't like the Silmarillion, but I've never met people that like the Hobbit and not the Lord of the Rings, or vice versa. That's kind of nothing I've heard before. But
No.
I will say this, I mean, there are people that don't like the Silmarillion, probably why. It explains more stuff. The thing that keeps people talking about your property is the mystery, is the
Yes.
debate over,
Yes.
oh, what was this about? Or what was that about? Or who was this character and what was that past really like?
Wolverine.
Right.
They answered that
You know,
question.
in the beginning of every Star Wars movie, and this is an argument I had with a friend of mine. We were talking about it, and I told him, dude, if you really go and look at the beginning of every Star Wars movie, it starts off with "Once upon a time in a galaxy far, far away." So that means this is someone's past. Am I correct?
Mhm.
Yep.
So this is someone's past, and they're just telling the story of what happened in the past. One can only know what whole Star Wars is going to outlive all of us. So, like, he disagreed with me for some unknown reason. I don't know what the hell was wrong with him. He was smoking, but he hit me off like he really didn't understand that concept, that this is somebody's past history. This is, and with the Lord of the Rings, the Hobbit is kind of like the beginning of all that. It's like, yeah, the Hobbit takes place before the Lord of the Rings, bro.
No, I know that, but
Yeah.
The Hobbit is really about more about Bilbo, and the Lord of the Rings is dealing more with Frodo.
Yeah.
Right.
And those are two different people, two different legends,
Which one is your
Two
favorite?
different time periods. Yeah.
periods, all together. That's the reason why I was asking that question, because people will look at it and it's like, well, they should love both. It's like, no, people actually picked apart those two different generations. And I was like, why are you doing that?
Mhm.
And what I come down to is come back down to relatability. Whatever you can relate to the most and keep that era mystery to you. Kind of like what JM was saying. It's all come back down to relatability. If you can't relate to one, you're going to hate it.
Right.
My
Right. So, like,
understanding is always that-
I like both, but I've read Lord of the Rings twice, and I love Lord of the Rings. It's like the ultimate to me. And
yeah. So, like, if you ask me to watch Star Wars again, I'll say yes. If you ask me to watch Frodo or Bilbo again, I'm just going to say, oh no, I can't.
so that's why I get along with Rosario. See,
But okay, that's a difference of
Right.
of one property preference or one genre
Yeah, that's
preference to
correct.
another. Like,
Sure.
I mean, Star Wars I like, but Luis is gonna hate me again. But
here we go.
I'm not a big sci-fi guy. I think that's why I
Okay.
don't like the superhero genre. I
Right.
just Star Wars I like because it's fantasy. The Force is magic. It is not a until the midichlorians came into the whole mix.
Yeah,
Like there was nothing,
Right.
sci-fi about it. And lightsabers too. I used to wonder, like, how would those even work? Because wouldn't it just keep going? Like, but yeah, that's a genre preference. But
Right.
okay, right. Probably out of everybody's scope. But like another one of my favorite creators, video game creator, is Hidetaka Miyazaki. Gotten a lot of feedback. Hidetaka Miyazaki. He's everybody would probably know Dark Souls, or the recent Demon Souls remake that came out with PlayStation. Right. I mean, if you've heard of anything he's done.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I've heard of it, but I have not played it.
Right. So there's only 3 Dark Souls games. He could have continued just making Dark Souls games until he died. He said, no, we're done at 3. He's developing a new property. I mean, this man has created now at this point, between Demon Souls, Bloodborne, Dark Souls, and now Elden Ring, he's on, what is that, his 4th world, his 4th completely unrelated property. And that's the thing. It's like, if you have new ideas, you don't have to continue to expand the same universe to the point where there's nothing left to delve into. I think you've just bled it dry. And all of the interest and magic of it is just gone. And I think that's another reason why I can't get into the superhero stuff. There's no ending. It just keeps going.
I got a counter to that with fantasy. Gary Gygax with Dungeons and Dragons. It's gone on long after he's passed on, and his entire career was building upon expanding the Dungeons and Dragons lore into fantasy element.
Right. But now you're talking about, okay, so I know that there is canon story to it, right? Mm-hmm. But now you're talking about a world where it's kind of a shared universe, because then the people that are playing it are bringing in their own characters to that. I think it's a little bit different than a creative process that is telling.
He told the story. This is the story that happened within this world. What you have control of are the players.
Right.
That's it, right? And he constantly kept the events within that universe going.
Right. Yeah.
There's going to be counters for everything. I don't want to, I don't want to sit here and say,
no. And okay, and for the record, I will say this: there's always an exception.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I always feel like no matter, and this is going to Luis's thing where you can always find a way. I do believe that. Like, there's always going to be an exception. And if somebody's here saying, JM, you know what, I can do it like George Lucas did, and it'll be amazing, and you'll love it, I'm sure somebody could. I'm not saying it can't.
When I first came on today, and I knew I was going to come on this podcast, I was excited that I was going to be in the same thing with Mr. DeSantis, JM DeSantis. Because I'm working with JM, and now I don't ever want to be in another podcast with him right now.
But look, to my credit, right? I don't necessarily have to like the same stuff you like, and I can still recognize your talent as a creator and publish your books.
You said you don't like sci-fi. Jay, I used to like you, bro.
But I know that people like. So there's the thing. I'm not going to devalue a whole genre because I don't like it.
Right.
And that's why I say with the superhero stuff, I don't like it. I personally feel like comics has to expand to it. Do I think that they need to kill off all the superheroes and just let those fans suffer?
But that's the thing. Comics is not limited to superhero.
Right.
That's the problem. It's like, what happened to books like ElfQuest? You had ElfQuest, the Eternals. You had all this other stuff that was other genres.
Gru. How about Gru?
Right. Gru.
Yeah, ElfQuest she's still producing.
The Peanuts.
Teenage Mutant Turtles are still going out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
there's plenty of this stuff. The problem is that we talk about comics and we only say Marvel and DC. That's what everybody thinks. You understand? And that's the issue.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? That's the real issue. You say comics, I don't think Marvel and DC. I think the Oswald Chronicles. I think Tall Tales. You understand? That's what I'm thinking. You understand? The rest of it, all right, they're there. God bless. Whatever. You understand? I mean, but I got my own stuff to do.
Right.
Spoken like a true businessman.
Exactly. And I mean, and Lewis, bruh,
Yeah.
we got to talk about that movie.
What movie?
You know which movie?
Oh, the show.
No, not the show. The movie.
Inside jokes. You're
No,
making me feel ostracized. Right?
How do you think I feel? I don't even know what he's talking about.
We were talking about the last damn, this thing is such good. The last Jedi, right?
Oh,
Right.
Because you enjoyed that movie, apparently, right?
Yeah, I enjoyed
did.
the Force Awakens and the Last Jedi. I didn't enjoy the one in the middle.
so
Oh, okay. All right.
What was the one? I try to remember the one in the
That
middle.
was
no, the Last
Rogue
Jedi
One.
is the one in the middle. The Rise
Right.
of Skywalker. is
no.
the
the
one.
last
I'm
one.
sorry. Yes, I enjoyed the Rise of Skywalker and the Force Awakens. The Last Jedi. I
So-
wasn't much of a
So
fan.
here's the thing I'm going to tell you too.
Here we go, Jay.
We can agree on that.
I enjoyed the Force Awakens and I enjoyed the Last Jedi. What pulled me out of it was hearing all the behind the scenes stuff.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
You
got
like the Last
I got
Jedi, Jay?
You like the Last Jedi?
So here's the thing. Like I knew it was a middle story, so I was like, okay, well we'll see what they do with this, So here's a big thing. Spoilers. Anybody that hasn't seen this, by the way, I'm just going to put this out here
It's
right
only been
now.
3 years. Go ahead.
Right. When Kylo Ren, who actually I love as a character, I thought Kylo was the best character, like in the whole thing.
Couldn't stand him.
What? I love
couldn't-
Kylo.
I
Actually,
couldn't
I liked Ray. Like, so I'm not like, let me just pull myself away from the Comicsgate people that are just like hating, the Ray character and everything. So it's not about any of that, right? I loved Kylo, but when Kylo in the second movie, so in The Last Jedi, says to Ray, your parents were nobody. They were just like, they just sold you.
Mhm.
Like, I don't know why anybody took that seriously. I thought he was lying.
Mhm.
I just thought he was lying to her. That's what I went with. I didn't think that Ryan Johnson, and I understand when I heard more about what went on behind the scenes that he was trying to shake things up, but I didn't necessarily think he was screwing with the story. I just thought, okay, Kylo lied to her, and we'll find out what the truth was in the next episode.
I believe the 3 movies that came out last should have been more based on I believe it was Timothy Zahn who wrote
Heir to the
stories.
Empire.
Yeah.
He wrote the stories with the solo kids that made more
Right.
sense in those
Jason
movies.
and Jaina.
Yeah,
And Anakin.
And there was Anakin, the little one.
Yeah.
That had a thing for building droids just like his grandfather.
Right.
See, but
I
the
thought
Mandalorian was picking up on that. That's why we got the Dark Troopers. That's why they're starting to hint at the guy with the blue face. What's his name?
Thrawn.
Thrawn.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. And the rumor is that it's going to be Mad Mikkelsen's brother.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, Lars Mikkelsen. And Mads already did Rogue One, so you can't use him again. But Jam, if you like the story behind the story stuff, dude, Disney Plus has a 7-episode series on the making of season 1 of The Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Each episode is a round table with the special effects guys or the directors or some of the actors, and I like that stuff, and it's a great fill-in. It's a great educational process for us to see what they go through and what we can apply to our stuff.
That's a lot of stuff I look at. Like, I remember watching, totally unrelated, I watched a documentary on National Lampoon, like the creation of it and develop. Like, that stuff fascinates me because that's more of how it helps me pick apart why something's working or not. I look at the creators and what was going on with them and their thought process. Because there's a science and a formula to successfully doing something creatively, but I think that missing element is always, whether it's successful or not, is how much actual like heart and passion was behind it. And I think when you look at the story behind the story with a lot of things, that's how you really find out why something worked or why it didn't. You know, and I think, again, I know I'm always knocking the big studios, but I think that's the thing they're always missing. When they luck out and hire somebody that actually cares about what they're doing, they wind up with a hit. But they just think, well, if we move the plot through these elements, it's like, yes, that is a good, well-told plot. But if the person that created it didn't care, it's like every other one, you know, like it just.
Let me throw the counter. I love doing it right now. I'm the counter guy. So I was talking about Jon Favreau before, right? And his what he did for Iron Man, right? You hear all this story. The movie was ad-libbed pretty much. There was a light script.
Oh, yeah.
Were coming in on a daily basis, right? Jon Favreau and Robert Downey Jr. were all about ad-libbing, right? They'd work out the scenes. But then the other side of that coin was Jeff Bridges, who is one of those people that needs to reread his script before he shows up on set. And he couldn't. He was freaking out. He did not gel with them creatively. It didn't mean he didn't get along with them, right? But he just, it wasn't working for him. Yet they found a way to make magic, right? And if it wasn't for that, I mean, it had money behind it, right? But if it wasn't for that, Disney would have ever seen Marvel the way they see it now.
Right.
And we wouldn't have what we got. We ended up getting with Star Wars because the money that they got to buy Star Wars came from the money they made off of the Marvel Universe stuff.
Right. And, you know I don't like superhero stuff, but I never saw the third Iron Man. I enjoyed the first two quite a bit, actually.
Yeah, I'm definitely
knowing what you said here, you probably wouldn't like the third Iron Man movie.
Yeah,
No,
it was garbage.
You didn't
You
miss
know,
that.
I don't know. I didn't. So, you know, just to throw some things into it, I didn't like Thor. I didn't like Captain America. I liked Doctor Strange.
Okay.
You know, so
Now, did you like? Now I know the first two Thor movies. A lot of people have problems with. What about the third Thor movie?
well, see, I stopped at one because I really didn't think it was that great.
Okay, look at the third Thor movie. It's a different animal. It's a different animal.
That one's kind of hard to watch if he hasn't watched two.
Well, but I may make my way through the Marvel Universe movies for, like, my sister-in-law pitched it to me this way, and I think from this, in this aspect, I really could. So, Leslie, I'm giving you some credit, which you're probably not even watching this anyway. But she was saying, like, as a writer, you would probably really appreciate how well they fit all these movies together and built toward, you know.
I agree with Leslie.
Yeah. So, you know, and I was like, well, you know what? In that sense, maybe I will watch the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe just so I can see how this whole thing came together, you know.
If you want to enhance the process, pull up your IMDb, right, and go through their trivia section while you're watching the movie.
Right.
And you get a little behind the scenes. I do that at times. I know we're laughing, but I do, dude. I did that. I've watched The Warriors. I don't know how many times.
Oh, right? Warriors, good, yeah.
It's a seminal New York kids flick. You got to watch it. But when you look at the story behind the story, it was rewritten halfway through production because remember the guy that was thrown on the train tracks and killed?
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, it's been a while since I saw it.
Yeah,
he was supposed to be the lead of the flick.
Oh wow!
But he got into he was so contentious on set.
Wow.
They couldn't deal with him anymore. They killed him halfway through production. So the scenes with Swan were really getting together with the girl were really his scenes.
Oh wow!
I never would have known that had I not gone through IMDb's trivia section, and then all the stuff that followed from there, and it's just like it enhances that process. So if those Marvel flicks are gonna be tough for you to get through, and you need a little bit more boost, may I recommend doing that?
Yeah, no, definitely. And it's funny you mentioned that, right? So another movie that I didn't care for, but you know, I did like The Warriors, right? But similar thing where things got upended halfway through. I remember when I was a kid, or younger, a lot younger, when The Island of Dr. Moreau came out. Right? I was like, oh man, I can't wait to see this film. It looks so good. And then I saw it and I was like, that was horrible, right? Yeah. It wasn't until like 2 years ago I finally saw something on what happened with Richard Stanley and like the whole, and I was like, oh, it makes perfect sense now why that film came out the way it did. You know.
There's a great early on when the Nerdist was still good, Ron Perlman was on there and he was talking about his time on the flick and how contentious Marlon Brando was with him with every scene that he did.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it was the last week or the last day that they were shooting together. Marlon finally decided to talk to Ron Perlman and found out that his character was a blind character. And he goes, I've been playing you wrong the whole time. We're going to need to reshoot this movie. With all the other shit that's going on. Everybody on that flick was making their own movie in their own mind.
Yeah.
Jesus. All right, guys. We ran a little long, so we're going to cut it off here, all right? So,
I'm sorry.
No, that's
and
fine.
to all
that's
my
fine.
fans that hate me now after hearing all the things that I dislike, I do
I just want to recommend one movie for you to rewatch here, and that's the original 1984's Ghostbusters.
Oh, I love Ghostbusters.
Yeah, the first Ghostbusters.
Because most of that was ad-libbed.
Yeah.
It did not truly follow the script at all. A lot of it's like 60% of that movie was ad-libbed. And you could not hit comedy gold like that ever again.
Oh, that was a beautiful movie. Yeah. And the thing is, an interesting fact about that, Harold Ramis, rest his soul, and Dan Aykroyd are opposites, or they were. Harold Ramis is a total doubter in anything supernatural, or was, and Dan Aykroyd is a complete believer, and the two of them came together to make this thing, with that mindset, and it's just, and they had all the right people at the right time.
They didn't know Bill Murray was going to show up until the night before.
Yeah.
The night before, the first day of shooting principal photography, they were worrying if Bill Murray was going to show up the next day. Fucking crazy is that.
All right, guys, let's wrap it up here.
All right.
JM, let us know where they can find you.
Oh, jmdesantis.com, or also my publishing company, which publishes Luis's books too. Some of them is Darkfire Press. Yeah, darkfirepress.com. And then we got Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. All the links are on there. So best places to get me.
There you go, Joe.
Okay, you could reach me at my company website, which is exigencystudios.com. You could reach me via YouTube at Silvo, which we do from the Death of a Small Press Publisher there. Facebook and YouTube, just look for Joe D. McPhee. You should pull it right up. And if you are curious about some of the stuff that I post on DeviantArt, you could look that up under Silverbolt 14. That's SILVERBOLT 14.
Mr. Lewis?
You can find me again at Darkfire Press with JM, and Facebook. You can go, I think, on the Lewis Cruz, and Instagram and Twitter. Same thing. Cruising Comics on Instagram.
Cool.
And
Oh, sorry, Lewis.
Oh, that's it. Go ahead.
No. Oh, that was it? You done?
Yeah, I'm going to create a new one called Cripples Are Us, but that's a whole nother thing.
That's
All right.
All
right. Jay, what about you?
Well, usually you can find me tricking on the corner, but because of the snow and everything, I got to stay inside. Thank you for at least laughing. Everybody else was like, no selling me. You can find me at unstoppablecomics.com, Unstoppable Comics on Instagram, Unstoppable Comics on Facebook, Jay the Unstoppable on Instagram, and hopefully at a convention coming soon, whenever it pops up again.
All right. So, everybody, my name is JD Calderon. You can find me on Facebook under that name, DeviantArt, YouTube, and Twitter. So, go look up the Oswald Chronicles. I have a Kickstarter going on. Guys, hit like, hit subscribe, share out the show. Let everybody know we're here. I'll talk to y'all soon. Have a good night.
Show the book. Show the book. Show the books.
Happy
Oh,
hour.
no, you know, I don't have the right book. That's from the prior campaign. I forgot
Okay.
to pull out the other damn books. All right. But if you look behind me, that's one of the covers. All right, guys. Have a good night. Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Bye.